PWCC is a great way to sell your sports cards. If you're looking for a way to support the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel, consider using the promo code CAJUN, all caps, CAJUN, when you're selling your cards on the PWCC marketplace. Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana, and I've been on a hot streak lately getting really knowledgeable, really helpful guests to come on the channel and talk about parts of the basketball hobby that I know absolutely nothing about, but I know a lot of people have a great deal of interest in, and today is no exception. I've got Jeff Hart, who's been on the channel before. He is Patriot_sports cards on Instagram. Jeff, welcome to the show. We're going to go for about an hour. We're going to have some fun. What's up?
Great. Thanks for having me, Brian. It's been a while, but glad to be back.
Jeff, first I'm going to do this because I'm always bad about this. When people come on the show, I sometimes forget to let people know how they could reach them. I want to get this out of the way. This is your Instagram. This is probably the best way to reach you if I had to guess. Like I said, Patriots, just like New England or American, _sports cards on Instagram. And Jeff is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to vintage auto collecting. And more. Jeff, I know you're in Boston. Is that right? Did I get that right? You're in Boston. Does that have something to do with how you chose the Instagram name, Patriot Sports Cards? I'm assuming.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a long time Patriots fan, and I can't even remember how I actually ended up coming up with it, but it's Boston sports, I guess, is where it ties.
Do you do hockey too? I never did ask you that. You do Boston Bruins and stuff like that? No. Football, basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably 90+% basketball, and then, a mix of like a little bit of football, a little bit of baseball.
Okay, just GOAT stuff. Vintage stuff in football, baseball as well?
A little bit, but yeah, not too much.
Let's do this. I want to know what you collect, how your collecting has evolved, because I know about 12 months ago, maybe 15 months ago, you sort of transitioned into really hyper focusing on vintage autograph stuff. Is that right? About 15 months ago is when you took that transition. Because I think the last time you came on the channel, this was not your joint. I think maybe you had started to think about it and talk about it, but I know you've really pushed heavy and become a big name in that. And we'll talk about the set registry and stuff. But here, I want to jump forward and let me just ask you a question, right? This is a yes or no question. 1980 Topps, vintage or not vintage?
Vintage.
1984 Star, vintage or not vintage?
Not vintage.
Okay. 81 Topps. That's it, right? So you kind of cut it off where I cut it off. I feel like Bird and Magic, when they came in the league, all hell broke loose and everything changed, and it became a worldwide sport. And I think they were the most crucial ambassadors to save us from the not so talented ABA kind of NBA era post-merger. They saved us from cocaine. They were two dudes that actually cared about winning and titles and legacy and history and win at all costs. And they were so different. They were East versus West, black versus white, slow versus fast, flashy versus blue. Everything about them was freaking perfect. So I would kind of say that's when the NBA stopped feeling vintage. But why do we include 80 Topps? Because that was kind of their year. You would think it would stop at 79. Is there an answer to this, or is this just something that people are going to talk about forever? Like, what's the true Jordan rookie card? This thing's not going away.
I don't think that'll ever be solved. I mean, you're going to have people telling you that 86 Fleer is still vintage, and and it's hard to completely disagree with that. But for me, it just doesn't feel that way.
It doesn't feel that way to me. Is it because we're old? I mean, these guys, Jeff, I get comments on my channel, and people are like, I love your channel. I watch all your stuff. Your 90s Jordan cards are incredible. You're my go-to for vintage. Like, what? It's like, man, I was a teenager in the 90s still. I was like, you bastard. So it's funny. It just depends on the perspective of the question asker. What is and isn't vintage? And I think your age definitely factors into it. So I just want to get that out of the way. We're kind of on the same page, Jeff. 1980. So tell me a little bit about your collecting. Don't go through your origin story. I don't want to bore people because I want to get people the information that's in your head. My job today is to extract information about vintage card collecting and vintage autograph collecting. And we're going to talk specifically about basketball, but kind of give people a snapshot, a pie chart of your collection and how your collection, what your collection would look like if you made it into a pie chart.
Yeah. So as I said, about 90 to 95% is basketball in general. And I would say probably 80+% of that is vintage. Okay. And I started being, hyper-focused on vintage. I go a little whiles back. So about 2005 or so is kind of when I started with graded cards. And my focus at that point was the 61 Fleer basketball set.
Yeah.
And also was collecting all-time Celtics greats, their rookie cards, and then starting to build the Hall of Fame set. And that has kind of stayed true to me up until this day. So I've had a lot of those cards, almost 20 years now. But as I've evolved from there, I built a nice 71 tops basketball set, which is the first year they had the ABA players. And I think that's just a really, cool set. It's, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but it's still a little bit under the radar for some people. And then, I put together a 57 top set and a 69 tops tall boys set.
Yeah.
And then, probably, ever since things have kind of increased in value quite a bit in certain segments, I've reached a point where it's just a little bit out of reach to kind of upgrade on some of the cards I have.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of looking for...
Been there, done that. I'm there. Especially with prices running on Jordans. I've hit that wall where it's like, damn, what am I doing here? Am I chasing my tail, right? You got to that point where you're like, this Hall of Fame set, holy crap, there's only so many I can get. Some of them are just price-wise tough. Even if you do happen to stumble on one, price is the issue, right?
Yep, in a lot of cases, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for not necessarily, the next best thing for investment or trying to, make a quick buck or trying to, increase the value of my collection. I just sort of stumbled upon, vintage autographs, in person, obviously not part of a pack. These were growing back, cards, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I just found it kind of really intriguing as a new segment. A lot of these things it's almost another way to find rarity. Yeah. When you're talking about cards where there's populations, when you throw the autograph on there, now you've sort of created a new level of rarity and challenge. And I kind of got, hooked on it more unexpectedly than anything. I thought I might, get a few here or there. And all of a sudden now I'm kind of doing what I was doing with the non-autographed, version of these and, giving a shot at it from autographs. And there is a whole community of people that I've become to know and meet, and some great people in collecting that have been doing this a lot longer than I have for autograph collecting. And people that have taken different approaches. There's always the people that, if you haven't heard the term TTM, is through the mail. And so these are people that are very good at finding the address.
Hard way. He did it the hard way.
Oh yeah, right. The old school way.
Yeah.
And being able to actually locate these people, players, get their addresses, have a compelling story and a letter they put together to get them to give your autograph and maybe a donation or whatever it might be. And that is a fairly cost-effective way to get some of these vintage players autographs. That hasn't really been my my style. What I've just tried to do is kind of educate myself as best as possible of what's rare, what's not, how to get certain signatures. And I bought most of them already graded. Yeah. But probably another half I've gotten ungraded, and then I've sort of been in the PSA game of getting these things authenticated, which can be as infuriating as getting a lower grade on a card that you think deserves a couple points higher. But instead of it being due to the grade of the card, it's more of they're saying the autograph's not real, and it's real.
Yeah.
So there's a whole another layer of challenges because they're being so much more stringent and conservative on some of these vintage autographs, especially of players that have already passed away. And so they would rather say, we're not 100% sure it's real, so we're just going to say we don't know, rather than slap it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you it can be a frustrating endeavor at times.
Yep. Jeff, let me ask you this question. So I'm super OCD, and these are the kind of questions. And I had Justin on the channel last week, or actually, last week. Yep. And we talked about Jordan autographs and autographs generally from the 90s, right? So I'm going to ask you the kind of questions I asked him, and this is coming from somebody who knows nothing about autographs, but I'm super OCD, and I need closure, and everything needs to fit in certain compartments. Talk to me about when you start talking about autograph cards, even PSA DNA in-hand autograph cards, you got an opportunity for 2 grades. You grade the card, you grade the quality of the autograph as well. Where do you stand on, or I guess, where do you stand on, yes, there's an autograph grade, or no, there's an autograph grade first? That's the first question. Is authentic, is that enough? Do you want more? Do you need more? And then the second part of the question would be, where do you stand on the grade for the card versus the grade for the auto, as far as the weight that you apportion to it? Which one's more important than the other, or does it just depend? So it's a 2-part question. First is autograph grade. Do you have to have it? Are you okay with an authentic autograph?
You, especially for in person, you definitely do not have to have the autograph grade.
Okay.
And I've learned this, I wouldn't say the hard way, but I went in it not knowing that exact same question. You can grade a card 5 different ways. You can grade just the grade, just the card, just the auto, neither of them or both of them. And it can be confusing because you can't put a variety of different options on one order. So you have to break them all up and decide what you're going to do. Yeah. And so I kind of had to learn what's worth grading one way or another. And I think the answer really is it depends, because it really depends on what your collecting goals are for it. A lot of people, if they're not, say, doing something like the registry, right, the card grade, it has far less influence. You're more happy just to have the autograph, and you might care more about having a nice quality looking autograph, whether that's a 10 or whether it just looks nice to the eye. If you want to kind of add that layer of rarity to it, it's a lot harder to find a high grade vintage card that's been signed, where people weren't as willing to sign a nicer example. And that's why you see a lot of some of these, Hall of Famers and cards sell for just, crazy money because it's a high grade card with the autograph. And then there's situations where it really doesn't matter because it's just a feat to even have the person sign the card in the first place. And that, you don't really care about the card grade or the autograph grade. You just are happy to have a autograph card because there might only be a half a dozen of them that are known to exist. So it varies, but I'd say in the ideal world, it's nice to have both the card and autograph grade if you can, but it's definitely not a must.
What is the number of autograph grade? Stay with me. What is the autograph grade number where you would rather it just say authentic than have a number? You know what I'm talking about? You know how if you're collecting 90s cards, if it's a PSA 6, I'd rather just have the card raw. You know what I'm saying? So I'm asking, where's that threshold where, you've got a Wilt Chamberlain 61 Fleer and it's a PSA 5, PSA 3 autograph. Would you rather that say authentic for the autograph, or is 3 great? I don't know. I'm asking as a dummy.
100% you'd rather have it say authentic. I'd say the farther you go back, you don't want anything less than an 8 auto.
Really? Okay, good.
Personally.
Yeah.
Right now, like my sort of threshold has been, if I'm submitting it, and again, I'm not the expert of determining whether it's an 8 auto, a 9 auto, a 10 auto.
Sure.
But
neither is PSA.
Yeah.
By the way.
But like when I'm submitting, if I don't think it's going to get a 9 or higher, I'm just going to send it as a card grade only with authentic auto.
Okay, that's your go-to. Like unless you look at it and you're like, damn, this is a badass. This is a 9. This is 8, 9, 10. Mm-hmm. Clearly, no doubt, 8 worst mm-hmm. case. You're just going to get all card grade, authentication for the autograph.
Yep. And sometimes even if I think it won't get a 10, I'll still do the authentic if I think it'll get a 9.
Got it.
You know, just a couple examples of rules of thumb. Like that I've learned is if you see sort of like streaking in the writing of the autograph, that'll downgrade it.
Yep.
And then let's say it looks like you have a perfectly bold 10 autograph. If the player just for the heck of it decided to take his pen and just go off the card with the thing, you know,
no stickers. There's no stickers here, so it's off card, not off sticker, off card.
Right. The pen goes off card. No matter how nice the autograph looks, it'll be a 9 at best.
Yeah, this is fascinating because I asked Justin the question: what matters more, card grade or autograph grade? And I asked you the same question, but it's a completely different answer, completely different perspective for lots of reasons. Number one is Justin was talking about pack pulled cards. Well, none of mm-hmm. your autograph vintage cards are pack pulled. We know that, right? Well, unless you include 1980 tops, and then you've got your buyback, right? But if you're talking about real vintage, like we're talking about 50, 60, 70, stuff like that, none of it's pack pulled. So the autograph is almost, there's lower expectations for the signer, I would think, right? And so Justin obviously cited, he'd rather have a PSA 9 with a 10 auto than a PSA 10 with a 9 auto on mm-hmm. a Jordan card, right? Because the autograph means so much, because that's how you really distinguish it. Sort of like looking at a super fantastic patch versus just a normal little patch. The autograph is what carries the weight. Mm-hmm. In this case, I gotta believe a very high grade vintage card with an authentic autograph would probably be better than a very low grade 3 or 4 PSA 3 or 4 vintage card with a 9 autograph or even a 10 autograph. I would think. I don't know. I'm guessing. What percentage of the hobby? This is off the cuff, right? You weren't prepared for this. What percentage of the hobby, and I've got an idea in mind, do you think collects vintage basketball cards? Period. Just period. Like to some extent, on some level.
5%.
I was going to say the exact same number. And the reason I say that is because we got to remember how many people came into this hobby in 2019, 2021, right? And I get the vibe that all those young cats, they're not chasing Bob Pettit, they're not chasing Doc, and they're not chasing Artis Gilmore and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. People often say vintage is not exactly the safest thing because one day people won't care about these basketball players, right? The new kids coming in, they don't care about Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell or Pettit or Cousy or those guys. And the way that I respond to those people is probably the same way. It's like, I don't give a shit about Honus Wagner, and neither does anybody else. But why don't you go look at the most valuable card in the world? And none of these young kids care about Mickey Mantle either. Why don't you go look at the most valuable cards in the world? You know what I'm saying? So I would think that all of those kind of general perceptions of these antiquated players carrying this massive, crazy, museum art type prices, I think it would carry over to basketball as well. You're only talking about 50 years later, 60 years later, whatever, for basketball.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think there are some players that'll fall off the radar, no doubt, but there's also people that care about the history of the sport and want to learn more about it and of the different eras and players. And Hall of Famers are always collectible no matter what, whether you're if you're trying to complete a run of Hall of Fame, whatever it might be, you're going to stumble upon those players eventually.
Yeah. And
so I think there'll always be some demand there. It may sway up and down depending on the player, but then there's certain players that are, exceptions to the rule. Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and plenty more would fall into that bucket. To me, that's not going to ever change.
Unforgettable players. Mm-hmm. Yeah, players whose image appears on the NBA logo, right? Mm-hmm. Players whose records don't even look believable. Players who have more championships than anyone will ever, get half of, again, probably quite likely going forward. All right, so you answered my question, and I'm on the same page as you. I say 1 out of 20. I say 5% of the hobby right now probably messes with vintage basketball. What percentage do you think messes with vintage autograph?
Probably less than 10% of that.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I think that's incredible. And I know some people are like, "Well, you're buying stuff that people, not enough people care about." And I want to remind people, it only takes 2. It only takes 2. And we can go back and again and talk about the Honus Wagner, right? I don't give a damn about that card. You know what? 99.9% of the people don't have a Honus Wagner T206 on their radar, but it keeps breaking records every time it sells. It doesn't take, massive demand when you're talking about cards with that type of supply. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the set registry, because I know that drives a lot of what you do. Okay, so I'm gonna pull it up here, and I don't know a damn thing about it. Everybody keeps bagging on me, dude. You got to get on the set registry. I'm like, man, there's no way. I got too many cards. I'm not going back and recreating this. Although it would be fun. Plus, I've got so many BGS cards, Jeff, that it would make me very sad.
I'll tell you what you do need to have, though.
Tell me.
Whether you're on it or not, there is there should be a registry, whether it's PSA or somewhere else, that has the Cajun cardboard Michael Jordan hierarchy as a set for the registry.
It would be awesome.
That should exist.
It would be awesome. Maybe one day Nat will look down and shine his light on the peons that live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and say, you know what? This is pretty cool. It's working out that way, and I damned myself. I doomed myself because crazy stuff starting to happen. Like crazy sales on PSA 10s of tier 3 and tier 4 Jordan cards selling for $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. So I've pretty much slammed the door on myself completing my own damn project. I probably should have waited 3 years and just kind of kept this, under wraps, and then released it after I completed it. Of course, then I would not be the authentic content creator that people have come to know and love. So
I've been watching. I've been watching from the sidelines. I can't say I've been participating with my wallet, but I've been watching.
It's hilarious. Every once in a while, Jeff, I'll get a comment where somebody's like, this guy's a pump and dump. He collects Jordan. He's hyping Jordan cards. I'm like, dude, if only you knew. I've literally slammed the door in my own face on cards that I wish I could acquire that I just refuse to pay the going rate for. I just will not do it. I won't chase the rabbit all the way. All right, talk me through the PSA set registry. Pick one that kind of makes the most. God damn, Jeff, you're number 1 on the 1989-90 Hoops announcers set.
That's a random one. That's I wouldn't say that's part of the investment portfolio.
No, you're
kind
one
of
out
a cool
of 2.
set, though. Kind of a cool set, actually. Have you heard of that before?
No, well, I've seen it. I've seen them.
Yeah. So they're pretty rare. I don't want to obviously want to spend too much time on this, but they were created by Hoops to give to the announcers as almost like business cards for them. And supposedly the story is they created about 500 per guy, and then they existed from there. And they've been difficult to find in good condition because sometimes they were given in like a pile of cards to Dan Issel or Marv Albert or whoever it might be.
You've definitely got some monsters. Pick one of your PSA set registries that you're most excited about. Well, let's go to your vintage auto one. Tell me how to find this.
Yeah. So scroll down. Keep going. I might have to go to the next page, actually.
Jeff, where I see 2020, 2021, 2022, that means you're number 1 in those years.
Mm-hmm.
As of those years, right? That means like as of 2021, you're number 1. If it says 2022, you don't have it, and then 2023 you do have it. That means somebody passed you, but then you passed them back. So every year you end with that. That's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. Tell me, where do I need to go?
Just go to the next. Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see it maybe about 10 down. We could go to either ABA or Celtics, so whatever one you want to go to.
Let's go to ABA. All-time ABA team rookie autographs.
Mm-hmm. So
is it rookie, Jeff? Is it rookie because this was the first appearance of ABA players in a set?
No, the first appearance of ABA players in a set is 71, but in 1997 they had the 30th anniversary of the ABA, and to commemorate that, all the former players, ABA players, sports writers, owners, a bunch of other people voted and on the top 30 all-time players from the ABA, and that became like a, kind of like the, top 50 NBA anniversary. So that sort of became the list for the ABA.
Okay.
And then, the PSA registry created that set of all the players, rookie cards of those 30 players, to collect. And I built that, with graded cards, not autographed. And I learned to, by doing this, I was able to learn like a ton about the ABA and got pretty, hooked and fascinated about it, to be honest. And then when it came to doing autos, I was like, I don't really want to commit the funds and the effort and everything to overwhelming myself out of the gate. So I don't want to go and try to collect the Hall of Fame autograph set and making me feel like I need to go and, spend,
take out a second mortgage and
on to try to get a Wilt Chamberlain autograph rookie card or George Mikan or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to set myself up for disappointment. So let me start small. And basically the registry had some sets that already existed that mirrored the unautographed sets,
okay,
but for autographs. And so I'm like, the ABA top 30 seems palatable. Let me try to go for that. Cool. That should be fun.
Who's the big dog in there?
Moses Malone's one.
Moses, yeah. George Gervin.
Yep. And and we'll talk more about this, but some of the players that you might think were the biggest names might not be the most expensive autographs. Even
it's all who signed the most, right? It's some guys just didn't sign it. Yeah, Zelmo Beatty. I don't know if that dude signed anything. He may have been an asshole for all we know. Or died too soon.
I got a story around that one.
Okay. So answer a quick question real quick. I've got this pulled up, which is a banger. It's a filthy autograph. Like, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So this is obviously an old PSA label, right? I can just tell because it looks old. It says PSA DNA certified. And, normally on the right, we'll see card grade 6, and then under it, it'll say autograph authentic. Mm-hmm. Is the reason it doesn't have 2 over there on the right side of the label because it's so old? They just used to put PSA DNA certified?
This is what they used to do, from my understanding. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And this is at the time when they had the blue labels. So those are where the card wasn't graded.
So this is a recent one.
Oh, that's a recent one, yeah.
Because you got the first of all, a freaking 10 on the autograph. It's crazy. There can't be too many of those out there.
Yeah, you could tell that was probably towards the latter end of his life when that was signed. He's a little shaky, right?
A little shaky, dude. These are some. First of all, this was one of my dad's favorite players. I don't know, how old are you?
43.
All right, I'm turned 50 in what date is it? I turned 50 in 10 days, Jeff. So this dude right here, Louis Dampier, who looks like he could do my taxes for me. My dad used to talk about him all the time, along with Dan Issel, because I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I was born just in time for the Kentucky Colonels. Of course, I was a freaking baby seat or whatever, but I had a Kentucky Colonels onesie from birth with a little red, white, and blue Kentucky Colonels, ABA branded basketball. And Louis Dampier was one of the names that I remember hearing from like age 4. I would remember the name Louis Dampier, Dan Issel. I've got some ABA ties as well. Some of these cards really, you can't look at these cards and not think of the Will Ferrell movie All Pro. I mean, there's lamb chops everywhere. There's great mustaches, perfectly manicured afros, and even some guys that, are way ahead of the game and have hair like the dudes in fraternities at Ole Miss right now. Dan Issel right here. He was a monster, by the way. Amazing. This is freaking nostalgic. That's an insane set right there, Jeff. So tell me this. So I'm looking at the PSA set registry, and again, I'm dumb when it comes to this. This grade right here in this column, that's card grade only?
Yeah.
Autograph grade won't show on here.
No, it's more of a kind of card or example specific. So you don't get rated on what the autograph is. It's just kind of it's sort of off the radar how it stacks compared to the other ones. They're really the only way to do it in a simplistic way is just to have it by the card grade.
Okay. Yeah. So your ranking is based on card grade versus other people. How many you have, and then based on how many you have, what the grades of those constituent parts are. That makes sense. You've got some crazy stuff. So again, dumb PSA set registry question. If you've got, let's say, I don't know, and one of those cards we just looked at, the Dr. J autograph 1972 tops that we just saw in your all-time ABA team rookie autographs. When you put that into the set registry under Hart collection, it auto-populates it into every PSA set that it would be a constituent part of, right? Like it would be in the all-time Dr. J autograph set registry if that existed, right?
If you created that set, yeah. It only puts it in if you've determined that's one you wanted to track or collect.
Okay. But it's like there for you. Like you see the buffet, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You could choose.
What are you doing? You're just checking them off. Like I want it in here, and here, or
what? You don't even have to do that. You could look through what's already existing. That sets already exist, in the universe. Yep. And then, you can choose which ones you want to say start or begin doing. And you could kind of just initiate that, and that'll save it into your list or the ones that you've determined that you want to start to put together. Yep. Okay. And then anytime you want to add a card, I use the app, and you just scan the barcode and it automatically populates it into any set that it would, by nature fit into. Depending.
That's what I'm asking. Okay, so you don't have to. I'm saying you don't have to say put it in here. Go. Well, let me search the next one. Put it in here. Let me search the next all-time Philadelphia 7. Whatever. All-time Virginia Squire. So it just auto-populates it in there when you scan the barcode. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty good. All right. So we've established that 1% of the 5% of people in the hobby collect vintage autographs. This is awesome. This is unusual for my channel. This is new, so I'm kind of excited about it. People that are watching my channel are going to be like, "Oh shit, Cajun's getting into autographs." That's 2 guests in a row, and I'm not. I promise you, I'm not. I might dabble in the Jordan autographs, but I can't open up Pandora's box financially to kind of chase Jeff Hart as number 1 on the PSA set registry. I don't have it in the wheelhouse financially. But this is fascinating. Tell me this. I want to ask you, let's get out of vintage autos and let's get into just vintage, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me, in your opinion, top 5 vintage cards of all time. I think 1, 2, and 3, actually 1 through 4 are easy. I think number 5 is going to be hard. You tell me when I'm wrong, right? In some order. I'm not going in order. 48 Mikan. Mm-hmm. 69 Kareem, Lou Alcindor. 57 Russell, 61 Wilt. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets a little tricky. I personally, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I would leapfrog Oscar. I'd leapfrog Jerry West. I would jump straight to 72 Doc.
That's where I thought you were going to go.
Yeah. What would you do? Where would you go with number 5? Am I right on 1 through 4 probably?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, choosing the order would be trying to choose the top 10 in the NBA players. You're never going to be, no one's going to agree. But yeah, I would say those 4, and I probably, just for the sheer popularity factor and people knowing that card, I would probably put Dr. J there either, by no means does that mean it's the most valuable or the hardest to get, it just definitely has that iconic look to it.
What are the other contenders? Oscar, West?
Oscar, Jerry West. I would say, we're forgetting Pete Maravich.
Pete, yeah, which is crazy because again, I can't. You know what? I better just shut up. I'm wearing a purple shirt. I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I need to just shut up. Just go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to choose from. I mean, Bill Walton's another good one. 74 tops.
Do you remember when the Moses Malone PSA 10 went on that little crazy thing? Do you remember that? Has that come back to earth?
There was, well, yes, it has. So yeah, on PWCC, there were 2 examples that sold on the same night, I think for 90,000 plus.
What is it, 76?
5.
Right,
and then there was one that sold maybe an REA, I want to say a few weeks later.
A month
later for maybe 80 or something like that, and then
Here's what
the next one sold for like 35.
That's the graph that Jeff's talking about right there. So you can see the all-time high, 99,000. But what's funny is, and this is very sad. So it went from 12 at the peak, right? That's bubble 12, right? 12,000 bubble to 102,000 less than 8 months later. Then 96, so it was substantiated. Now, again, these both had PWCC eye appeal stickers, and one of them was an E sticker, which is very, very rare. And then the next 10 went down to 90, which is like, ho hum, okay, that's fine. And then we start talking about 20 grand. So this dude here that bought it at 20 is a freaking genius. Is that you?
No.
Damn.
No, I got my first a little bit less than that.
Yeah. 20, then 43, 28, 24, 21, 19. And now the last one, Jeff, has jumped back to 34, but it's been a bit here. It's been almost a full year. That's an interesting story on that. Sorry, that's a completely diatribe there. But I always thought that was fascinating because, I've got Moses as probably one of the most underrated players of all time. Unquestionably, without any equivocation, no logical human being who knows anything about basketball could argue the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. Never will ever anyone ever approach him, especially the way the game's being played now, where anybody can get offensive rebound because everybody shoots from 31 feet. He will never, ever be contested as the greatest offensive rebounder of all time, and arguably one of the probably top 5 greatest rebounders of all time. 3-time MVP. Big-time player right there. And there's the card we're talking about. Again, nobody gives a shit, right, that's watching my channel, but it is what it is. Maybe you learned something today, right? All right, last huge pickup. Talk to me about the last huge pickup for the Hart collection.
Yep. So this was probably, it's not just my last huge pickup, but it's probably the biggest pickup I've had in a couple of years. And that would be this guy right here. Now I wish I could hold on a second. You can probably see it on my page better, my Instagram page. So why don't we do that?
It, Jeff. I can do it. Damn, you wrote like a damn novel here, Jeff. You don't need it. All you got to do is show the card, Jeff. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be a Spinatron here.
But this one I thought was important to kind of tell a little bit about it.
Yeah, tell me.
And I had was this flashback 1 year, I wouldn't have been able to say half of what I wrote in there because I've learned a lot in just doing this for a little over a year. And again, it was never about the money, just doing this autograph stuff. It was just literally to do something different and have fun with it. One thing that commands a significant premium to the same exact card that's been signed by the same player is if it was signed during their playing days. And that, can sometimes double or more the value, especially if the player didn't really sign in his playing days. And that is where Bill Russell would fit into that category. So what I've learned from some very knowledgeable collectors is, Bill Russell was in general a notoriously difficult signer in general, up until probably 20 years until he passed away. And then he started doing shows and had an agent and getting a lot of autographs signed. And that's where probably 90+% of his rookie cards were signed. Yep. And, signed in like a Sharpie. He did a lot in like a silver paint pen or sometimes this green paint pen. But when you talk about his 57 Topps rookie, he, as far as I understand, stopped signing that card specifically and almost all autographs in the early 60s.
Okay.
So the opportunity to have that many that were signed in, say, ballpoint pen by him, on his rookie card when he was playing, there's not that many of them to go around. And then, and then factor in kind of, ballpoint pen that skips, you might not come out clear and you can't exactly write over it, right? So like, the number of them that came out looking really nice and have stayed that way over time are even fewer. And the one I was able to acquire here, I never would have dreamed to even have the opportunity yet. It's, for a card grade itself, a 4 is pretty decent for a Russell rookie.
I was going to say, I'm not impressed with the Russell rookie. You could have stopped there.
Itself. Yeah. And you know, having a 9 auto, first of all, you don't really see 9 autos that are ballpoint. It just doesn't happen. Usually you can get 9s are usually your best ballpoint grade. I found, you know, sometimes it's 8 or worse. And this one just is kind of placed perfectly where you could see it on the card. You know, you notice his signature nowadays just doesn't look like it does in that card. It's a little bit different when he signed back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's just very bold, and it just, I don't know. I mean, I just think it's very unique.
So you talk about a premium for players who sign cards during their playing days. PSA doesn't make any designation on the card about that, right? That's just you got to know your shit type deal. Like, you've got to be experienced. You got to know what you're looking at. You got to ask the oracles. Like, PSA ain't telling you, hey, this is playing day or non-playing day, right? That's on y'all.
Yep. And that's something that I think would be awesome if they could do, and they were able to do it consistently with, you know, with some accuracy. But I don't know if they've determined whether either they can't or whether it's not feasible or worth the time and, you know, effort to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's nothing that determines like an era or the age of when it was signed.
Just comes from experience and knowledge. That's a humongous pickup, man. I mean, I don't know much about what we're talking about, but I know enough to know what is and isn't super, super important. That is the first thing I noticed on your page, and you've got some explaining to do. This is really, really big. I think there's only like 16, 18 cards higher than 8.5. I know there's 2 10s.
There's 3 10s, and there's actually 32 9s actually.
32 9s. Okay, so 35 higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is the next best you can do. And this is not, for those of you watching who don't know anything about vintage, this is not a cheap card, right? We don't really talk too much about value on here and beat our chest and, you know, beat the drum on value because we're just talking about the pieces themselves. This is a very, very expensive, very valuable grail level card for sure. And I told you, it looks better than an 8.5. This is the number one card that I would want because I've always been a Wilt Chamberlain guy growing up. You know, Wilt Chamberlain won, Jordan and then Wilt Chamberlain, you know, because Wilt Chamberlain's records are never gonna go anywhere. Tell me a little bit about this one. When did you pick this one up and where? And tell me the story behind this one.
Yeah, so I would say 2015, 2016.
Okay.
And at the time, it was not surprisingly, the most expensive card I had purchased at the time. And
you can tell us. Tell us. Go ahead. Make us all cry right now. You can tell us the purchase price.
Do you really want me to?
Yes, I want you to tell me.
All right. $5,000.
That is enough. I'll take all of them. Give me 20 of them. I'll go find 100,000. I'll go manufacture it and raise the money. Just give me all of them.
I'll add a side sad story to it within the same transaction.
Okay.
So the gentleman that sold it to me, he also had a Oscar Robertson 8.5.
Okay.
That I could have bought and bundled together at the same time.
For another $85, right?
And I decided, it's too much at the time. You know, I'm just going to stick with this one. That was probably not the right decision.
Probably not.
I could have got the Oscar Robertson 8.5 for $3,000 in addition to this one. So I passed on that one. Well,
one thing that everybody watching can conclude from this is that you are not a flipper. If that card's still in your collection and you bought it for $5, you're not a flipper, Jeff. You're definitely a collector, which I say that tongue in cheek. Obviously, if you're collecting vintage autos, you're probably not also a flipper. Let's talk about what's next on your radar. So we've seen 2 monsters here. You're impressive. You know, your collection's beyond impressive. PSA set registry speaks for itself. What's next on your radar that you don't have that you're looking to buy?
Yeah, I mean, so you see that the 2 sets that again I focused on were the all-time Celtics autos, right, and the ABA. So the last card I need for my ABA is actually, you see the card at the top there, Roger Brown. I'm trying to kind of locate a slabbed one of those of his autographs, and he passed away, I believe it was mid-90s. So his autographs are very difficult to find, just any grade, and forget about grade. And there's not too many of them. I know some collectors that have them, but they are holding them tightly. So that's one I'm on the search for, and that would kind of close the loop on that set for me.
Same card, but with the autograph. That's the last one. That's a 30 card set.
Yeah.
29 out of 30.
So that's a challenge for sure. And then
what is this? Explain yourself.
Yeah. So this is a card I think a lot of people should know more about. This guy, he was one of the best international players of all time.
That's Ronnie Cycli, right? That's Ronnie Cycli.
It looks like him. So Nikos Gallus is his name, and the story is fascinating with this guy. So in 1979, he was in the same draft as Larry Bird, and he was third in the nation in scoring, in college scoring, behind Larry Bird and one other guy. He got drafted in the 4th round by the Celtics, and he got, I forget what kind of injury that he had in training camp. And so they decided to keep Gerald Henderson and drop him.
Yep.
And then he went over to Europe and became one of the best international players of all time. That's wild. To this day, Red Auerbach was interviewed and to say, what was you obviously had a lot of success, as being a GM and an owner, and like, what was your biggest regret? And he said, not keeping Nikos Gallus.
That is a great story, because Red Auerbach pretty much hit the nail on the head. It sounds like he hit the nail on the head with Gallus as well. And just, it's like, we'll hedge our risk. We'll let him go win 57 titles in Greece. He sounds like the Oscar Schmidt of Europe, basically.
100%. So this guy would have carried the Celtics to championships in the 90s when they stunk. He would have really, really made them. Yeah,
they needed somebody then, because I got Sherman Douglas cards and Brian Shaw cards, and they were not doing much post-Bird, in that post-Bird era. They've had some amazing luck, and then, of course, they've had, tragic, horrific luck with Lynn Bias and Reggie Lewis. Like, people just don't, again, most young people that are watching the channel and be like, we've heard of Lynn Bias. What's the big deal? No, Lynn Bias was a can't miss, and Reggie Lewis was already can't missing, right? We saw, all we needed to see to know Reggie Lewis was going to be an all-NBA guy. And so that had a lot to do, with the Celtics not being able to kind of perpetuate and carry on from the big three, Bird, Mikhail Parrish era. This is awesome stuff, man. I'll keep my eye out for the Roger Brown autograph card. I think it's highly unlikely that I'm going to come across it before you do. But if I do, you definitely, I've got you saved in my phone, so I'll make sure we get that to you. What advice? So somebody's watching this today and they're like old like us, and they're like, you know what? I can do this. This is fascinating. I'm fascinated by it. Just the appearance of the autographs on cards that are this old, intrigues me. I want to get involved. What advice would you give to somebody that is thinking about getting into vintage basketball autograph card collecting?
Yeah, I mean, probably similar advice you'd give to someone, collecting non-autographs is, I would say, don't rush into anything when you're doing it, because when you're starting out, you have no idea if the card is rare or not rare with an autograph on it, unless you've kind of watched the market for a while and understood, what you're buying, because you could be getting something with a high grade, but could have a bad autograph, or vice versa, and you're paying way too much. So it's really helpful just to kind of, number one, start small and kind of figure out what, if you want to do autographs, that's awesome. Is there a tiny little segment of that you want to
set an achievable goal? Set an achievable goal.
Start with that and kind of see if you like it or if you don't like it, and before you throw too much money into it, because you definitely can spend a lot of money, quickly, like in anything. And and then kind of watch the market to understand pricing and also what's rare and what's not rare.
Who are some of the guys that you leaned on, that you reached out to when you decided to get into vintage autograph collecting? Was there anybody out there that kind of stands out that you'd like to thank, that you were like, you know what, I don't understand? You got to have somebody to bounce stuff off of. Like in the Jordan world, I got a list of 7-8 guys where I don't have any problem asking dumb questions, because I know they'll know the answer, and it almost makes sense to get your answer before you move forward with the purchase. Is there anybody out there like that stands out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a few. So like I said, it's a very tight-knit community, and people that have been doing it way, way longer than I have, in this niche. And I'd say one who's pretty well known in the collector community, for autographs for sure, and even just vintage basketball in general, is is Brian Oakley, and
I know Brian. Yeah,
he's historic hoopla, and he's been doing a long time, and like everyone in this kind of small space sort of has their niche of what they're known for, whether it's a specific set or a specific way of getting autographs, whatever it might be. Brian, is has this world-class examples of sets for the 69 Topps Tall Boys set, and 57 Topps basketball are two of the ones that he's collected just an amazing, almost complete sets of. The 69 is complete, and it's just very, very impressive, what he's been able to do. And
that's amazing.
Another guy named Brett Moore, he's helped me out in a lot of deals in the past and kind of helped locate things that I would never be able to find from anyone else. And he just has a very extensive collection. I think a lot of his is focused more in the 1970s, kind of, going across the board. And he doesn't necessarily have everything graded, but he has a ton of everything, which is just really, really impressive. And then the gentleman that I actually purchased the Bill Russell off of, his name is Harold Sterner, and he's a collector that at one point was, just collecting your unautographed sets, but he kind of evolved into autographs, type 1 photos, tickets and other rare memorabilia and stuff like that. And so he actually still has the only known complete 57 Topps basketball autographed set, the whole set.
Pop one, complete 57 set, Pop one.
Well, not all Pop ones, but I mean, like, he's the only person that's been able to collect. Some of those players have never had a card graded to them, or if there's only a couple known to exist. Like Maurice Stokes is one example of one of those players, where I think there's only one or two of his autograph cards known to exist. Yeah. And, he was able to acquire one of those. And so he has the complete set of that. And then with the Russell autograph, just to give you an example, in the last 20 years of collecting, he had only seen two nice vintage Bill Russell autographs, and he bought them both. And one of the ones is one he sold me, and then the other one he has, based on having a lot of expert people look at it, was signed during his rookie year in 57. So that was the one he chose to keep for his set. But, in 20 years of collecting, he only found two that were worthy of putting into his collection, just to give you an idea.
That's fascinating. Tell me about your plans for the National. I'm going to be up there. I'm up there Tuesday through Sunday. For those of you who don't know and have watched my channel, Jeff put me on a 1986 Fleer panel at the last National in Chicago, and we had a blast. It was fun, man. We had a really good attendance at that, and I think it was very well received. It was fun, and Jeff did all the work, and I just stood up there and answered questions and pointed out, funny stuff about the set or fascinating stuff about the set. How are you on your 86 Fleer? Where are you at on 86 Fleer?
I sort of good but sad story. So I had the whole set in PSA 9 at one point.
Yep.
And probably in 2018 or 19, I sold the whole set except for the Jordan.
Okay.
And I think I sold it for like maybe $4,000.
That's awesome.
All graded PSA 9s.
Great job.
So yeah, smart move by me.
You gave back all the money that you made on the Wilt, Jeff. Damn it.
But I kept. I had a lot of PSA 10s too in the Hall of Famers and stuff, so I kept all that. That's and good. I sold everything. I kept those, and then I sold the rest of the set. So unfortunately, I don't have the set anymore.
Yeah.
Just the Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Well, my sad story with that. I have two 1986 Fleer cards. They're both good cards. They're both PSA 10 Jordans with the sticker and the base, but I let everything else go. And it was that was Jeff without any equivocation. That's where I met Brian Oakley, is when I was doing the 86 Fleer stuff, because he was big into that too. That is by far to this day, and I love doing content. I love collecting what I'm collecting in the Jordan 90 stuff. But that first push and the feeling of nostalgia combined with nerd spreadsheets, combined with the chase and the hunt of 86 Fleer was the most fun I've ever had in the hobby. And I started at the bottom with a PSA 8 set, and then did another one, And then I was like, 9's expensive. Damn, this Jordan, is like $6,000. Did the 9. And then I was like, well, I'll never do the 10 because the Jordan's $26,000 at the time, right? This is way back in like 2018 or something. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And then I was like, a Jordan came up for sale and I knew it was real. It was a private deal. And I was like, I did it. And so then I did the 10 and then I did another 9 and another 8. And I have nothing left except for 2 cards from all of that hard work. But it was a blast getting to the finish line, and it was financially lucrative that allowed me to do some of the stuff I'm doing, in the era that I really love, which is the 90s stuff. Every once in a while I get that feeling, Jeff, and I know you probably get stuff like this too, where it's like, I'd really like to go back and put together another PSA 9 set. I think I could do that's something I could do, and it's fun. And you make your spreadsheet and you check off boxes. And if you're a set registry guy, I know you think like I think, right? You're like, here's my list, and I need to add to it. I need to build this thing to the finish line. Yep. All right. Yep. So I'll be at the National, Jeff, Tuesday through Sunday. We'll hook up for sure. And I always appreciate you joining the channel. If anybody wants to reach out to you with questions about vintage auto collecting, they're good to get you on IG with Patriot_sports cards.
Absolutely. Yep. And, like I said, I've got to know a few other collectors that are, well more knowledgeable than I am with that. So if you are looking for anything or have any questions, I'll do my best. And if not, I could probably point you to someone that might be able to help. So.
It's a great point. That's something I learned very early in the practice of law. Just don't guess. If somebody asks you a question, you think you know the answer, but you're not certain, don't guess. Go find the answer or put them in touch with somebody who absolutely will give them the right answer. I do that all the time with 90s. People think because I talk about Jordan 90 stuff all the time, like I have answers to these questions. I'm like, I don't know a damn thing about that Jordan autograph card, but here's a guy, message him on Instagram and go ask him, So I'm kind of that conduit, right? I put people in touch with people with big brains. Because I got a big mouth. So, Jeff, thanks for joining the channel. I will see you for sure early at the National. We'll have to get together and grab lunch one day, and we'll share some cards, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Great to connect as always. And thanks for having me.
This won't be the last time. Cool. Take it easy.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you guys for watching. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby, and peace.